Good morning. I hope there's somebody there. The settings were a little strange this morning on Facebook. Every time I go in, they seem to have changed it. Please, if you're there and you can hear me, just put something in the comments. I know I'm not myself. But yes, this morning's Facebook Live is all about surviving early sobriety. Now, at Tribe Sober, we talk a lot about thriving in sobriety and thriving in our alcohol-free lives, and indeed that is possible. And I certainly feel that I'm doing that these days after a few years of sobriety. But the beginning is difficult, and I still haven't forgotten how tough it was. So I chose the word surviving early sobriety just to acknowledge how tough that it is and to try and share some tips with you. I'd like to share things with you that I wish that I'd known when I stopped drinking, things that I think would have made it easier. Because once you know what to expect, it's like anything in life, isn't it? It makes it just a little easier to navigate the road ahead. And I wrote these notes really, especially with our sober springers in mind, because here they are at day 4. And I was scrolling through the many messages yesterday, and I found this one that really kind of touched me. She said, this lady, who shall be nameless, but she said, I'm literally dragging myself through day 3. Still loads to do this afternoon, but just feel like sleeping. I had a rough night last night, plus my husband told me he didn't ask me to quit drinking, only drink less. Oh, I mean, yeah, I really felt for this lady because in those early days you have to cope with tiredness, low mood. It's hard to get to sleep if you're used to sedating yourself with wine. And of course, you get the cravings. And then on top of that, you get those annoying remarks, and people telling you to cut down. I mean, if you do have a problem with alcohol, then you won't be able to cut down. You have to quit, and that's as simple as it is. But I know that it is such a common reaction. The husbands, I mean, mine used to say it for years, just have one glass, Janet. He said, you don't have to drink the bottle every time. And once you cross the line with your drinking, that's not going to happen. And if we've been drinking for years, I think we've got to be a little bit patient. We're not going to turn the problem around in 5 minutes after all. Imagine if you've got 20 kilos to lose, if you've got a weight problem. Okay, you start on your diet and you work hard. You're not going to expect to be slim within a week, are you? You know that it's going to take weeks, maybe months of hard work, but you also know it's possible and you will get there and you'll feel so much better once you're slim and healthy. So I guess my message is that we have to go through a bit of pain to get there, but take it from me, it is so worth hanging in there. And I think also one of the things that makes early sobriety quite tough is that there's loads of articles around, aren't there? Oh, sobriety is great. I'm so glad I quit drinking. And I have to admit, some of those articles are from me. So apologies for that, because I know they can be really irritating. But because you won't feel great for a while, you have to be patient. And all I'm trying to do is to help you to cope by thinking, oh yeah, I know that this is going to happen at this time, and yes, I heard it was difficult to sleep to start with, but I know my sleeping patterns will come back in time. So I think if we know all this stuff, the more we know, the easier it's going to be. So those of you that watch Facebook Live regularly with me will know that I always have my little list of points, because that's the kind of organized person I am. So today I've got 8 points for you. Oh goody, there's some people there. Who have I got? Someone in the UK. Oh, Lynette, thank goodness you're there, Lynette. Eileen, Roz, Mary Louise, Mandy, Lindy, and so we got 2 Mandys and a Lindy. Thanks guys for being there. Right, so where was I? So I've got 8. Ooh, do I need to move my screen? I don't know if this makes any difference at all to you guys, but I couldn't see my screen. Right, so 8 points to help you to navigate early sobriety. If you've missed the introduction, the beginning, you know that all of our Facebook Lives are on Tribe Sober YouTube channel. So there's some good videos on there now. We've got quite a collection. So anyone that's new, just check that out, because I believe that education is key. The more that we learn about this stuff, then the easier it is to manage. So number one, not drinking hurts. If you've been drinking a bottle of wine for years, then when you stop, it's really difficult. You're going to crave alcohol, you'll struggle to sleep, you'll feel grumpy and irritated, you'll have to put up with stupid remarks like, oh, you're boring, why are you doing this? Even if you're a sober springer, even if you're only taking a break from alcohol, society is going to frown upon you. I mean, it's mad, but that's the way that it's kind of set up. So all you need to do in these early days is acknowledge not drinking hurts and just put one foot in front of the other, day by day. You've got your tracker, fill in your tracker. When you wake up in the morning, set the intention for an alcohol-free day, fill in your tracker and do your best. Don't expect it to be a beautiful day full of sunshine and bunnies, because it's probably going to be really tough, but you're going to get through that day, and the next morning you're going to feel pleased with yourself. Point number 2, you have to go through a kind of grieving process for alcohol, because those of us that have drunk for years, I was certainly one of them, alcohol becomes your best friend in a way, because your world kind of shrinks, because all you really want to do is drink, whether that's with your friends or on your own in front of Netflix. You create a connection with that alcohol, and that's why it's so dangerous, because you get to a point where you prefer being home alone with a bottle of wine than being out socializing, even if you are drinking. So it's a very slippery slope. And if you have any doubts about the fact that alcohol can become your best friend and you'll have to go through a grieving process, then just go to tribesober.com, click on inspiration, click on goodbye to alcohol letters, and read those letters. They're heartbreaking, some of them, and the latest one that we put on was by Clive, who did the podcast last week, and his letter, just makes you want to cry. Alcohol brought him so low, and that's what it does to us once we develop a real dependence on it. But think about the grieving. I mean, I expect a lot of you are familiar with that curve, whether it's change or grief or bereavements. You have to go through a process. You get the denial and the anger and all these different stages, and you have to work your way through them until you get to acceptance. I think there's a bargaining stage in there as well. It's quite interesting. Just Google it if you're not familiar with it. But imagine if our best friend died, then we'd be devastated. We'd have to go through this process for a few months, if not years, and we'd acknowledge, well, we're sad, because our best friend died. And in fact, some of our sober springers or new members, I'm not quite sure which ones they are, but they've recently been bereaved. It's 3 ladies, I think, that we've got that have lost their husbands. And I really feel for those ladies, because they're going through a double bereavement here. But they've been so brave, because I know certainly when I was in my drinking days, if I'd lost my husband, I would have used that as an excuse to drink myself to death. And it's so easy if you're grieving and alone just to get into that awful cycle where you're drinking more and more, because there's nobody there to judge you. There's nobody there to say, oh, come on, you're overdoing it a bit. You just stop caring. But these ladies have been so brave, because they've said, I'm not going down that path. I'm going to choose life. So well done. And I hope some of you are watching, and we'll get you there. Right, number 3, sugar and carbs. You'll like this one, actually. Sugar and carbs are an essential part of your recovery. There's so much sugar in alcohol that when we stop drinking it, of course we're going to crave that sugar. I always said to myself that I didn't have a sweet tooth. I thought it was far too sophisticated to have a sweet tooth. And when I was in a restaurant, I'd be knocking back my wine, and then we'd get to the dessert, and some of the other people there would say, "Oh yes, I'll have a dessert and I'll have this one." And I said, "Oh, I don't like sweet things. I'll just settle for another glass of wine," which it's funny now looking back on it. I was getting my sugar from the wine. But there's a healthier way to deal with this craving, which might work for you. I interviewed Mary Ann Shearer, who is quite well known here in South Africa for her kind of healthy eating, um, rules, books. She's written several books on natural plant-based eating. And she says, I think it's podcast number 50. I don't know why I remember that. But anyway, I've got a podcast with her. And she says that we should, when we have a craving for the sweet things, we should eat fresh fruit and eat lots and lots of it, and buy yourself a case of mangoes, for example, and just eat loads of fresh fruit. And in that podcast, I mean, I can't recall it all now, but she talks us through the science of why that happens. And what happens is you keep eating lots and lots of fresh fruit, the most delicious and kind of exotic fruits you can find, and enjoy them. And you'll get to a stage where, I mean, it might take a few weeks to get to this stage, but you'll suddenly find that fruit really sweet and cloying. And that's because something's happened in your body, it's something to do with glucose levels, I think. So have a listen to that, and that might work for you. But if it doesn't, if you think, oh, I don't really want fruit, I just want a bar of chocolate, then we say, just eat it. At the moment, you're trying to stop drinking, and that is such a difficult thing to do. You can't cope with the sugar as well. Okay, you might even put on a few kilos, but to be honest, when we stop drinking, we tend to eventually lose weight. It doesn't happen overnight. Something else you've got to be patient for, because it's all about your metabolism normalizing. With me, nothing happened for 6 months, and then I suddenly kind of dropped 3 kilos in a week, and now I can eat whatever I want, and I never put them back. So it does work. But at the beginning, if you put on a couple of kilos, then live with it, because once you're sober, you'll feel so much better, and then you'll be ready to tackle the weights. And I don't know if anybody heard that episode podcast that I did with American guy, William, somebody, he was like a yogi, and he talked about the domino effect, and I love that. And when we get sober, we're filled with energy, and we're proud of ourselves. We think, God, if I could do that, I can do anything. So then you're in the mood to set other goals. So in fact, I've already overlapping a little bit into the next tip, which is, to quote Lucy, we call it chase one bunny at a time. Because as Lucy says, if you chase lots of bunnies, then you're not going to catch any of them. And she lives on a kind of farm with lots of bunnies, so I'll take her word for it. And yeah, chase one bunny at a time. So don't resolve on your first sober day when you're feeling rough. Think, right, I'm going to stop drinking, stop smoking, stop eating sugar, exercise every single day. Just don't, because you won't manage it, and nothing will work for you. Just focus on not drinking. Day after day, not drinking. That's all you have to do each day. If you manage that, you've achieved it. So keep going, don't drink. And then when you've nailed the drinking thing, then you attack the other goals. Number 5, beware of triggers. And understand HALT. I'm sure many of you are familiar with HALT, but it's a very good acronym. It stands for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And in fact, people are now putting an S on the end, which stands for stressed. So if you feel a craving, if you think, oh, I really need a glass of wine now, think, okay, why do I need this? Am I hungry? If you're hungry, then eat something, even if it's a bar of chocolate, just eat something. If you're angry, then that's a little bit more difficult, but I would say journal it, write it down. Why are you angry? Maybe if you're angry at a particular person, then write down how you feel about them, and then chuck the piece of paper away afterwards, hopefully somewhere where they won't find it. But just what I do anyway is I write to process my emotions. So journaling is great. Please, sober springers, keep a journal for 66 days. Buy a really nice notebook and every day just write down how it was. Process your emotions. So hungry, eat something. Angry, journal it. Lonely, reach out to the group. That's what we're there for. And these days, we've got Australians, we've got Americans, we've got Brits. We're there 24/7, frankly. I got up to go to the loo like you do at my age about 3 o'clock this morning, and I just glanced at my phone and it was the group and it was still churning away. And I just glanced at who it was, and it's someone in the US. So you're never alone with Tribe Sober. And yeah, if you're tired, obviously, then just rest. So I think a lot of us, we get on this treadmill, don't we? Certainly when we're working and we've got kids and it's just hectic. And we're on the treadmill, and I know I used to use alcohol for energy. I used to think, oh, I'm exhausted, I need to pick me up, and it does pick you up for a short time, and then of course it drops you down. And the S on the HALT is of course for stressed, and I think, when we're stressed, we have to think, why am I stressed? Let's try and deal with the source of the stress, because just numbing it away all the time is not a long-term healthy strategy. Number 6. The sixth thing that you should know about early sobriety is that not drinking is boring at first. And it is boring because if you've been like me, I was either planning my drinking, doing my drinking, recovering from my drinking, then you've suddenly got this kind of void and you're sitting there thinking, ooh, well, what happens now? Especially if it's the weekend. So, we've suddenly got time on our hands. And this extra time will eventually transform your life and enable you to thrive in your alcohol-free life. But at the beginning, it's a bit disconcerting and it just feels rather boring. So what you need to do, this is a little spoiler for our talk at the Zoom Cafe this afternoon, but you need a project, because I didn't understand that when I was in early sobriety and I felt bored and depressed. I just didn't know what to do with myself. I had a very low mood and I nearly gave up about 1,000,000 times. But then I had this idea for a project, and the project was Tribe Sober. And once I had that project, I had so much to learn to put that together and to implement it. I had great lists, project lists, and I was away, and once I started doing that, then my mood improved 100 times over, and I was on my way. So Loretta Bruning, who's our speaker at the members Zoom Cafe this afternoon, to which all the sober springers are invited, of course, is going to talk to us about, she's the author of a book called The Happy Brain, which is a fantastic book. She's going to talk to us about how you trigger your happy brain chemicals, and it's really interesting stuff. And she explained to me on our podcast, episode 55, that in fact what I'd done in early sobriety to cheer myself up subconsciously was to have this project and start striving towards it. But I didn't know at the time, of course. At the time, I just thought, okay, well, everybody has a low period, probably in early sobriety, and it'll just pass. And in fact, that's the advice I've been giving people when they say, oh, I'm miserable. I say, just hang in there, it'll pass. But now I say, get a project. So, projects, go on Udemy, for example, and you'll find hundreds of courses at very reasonable prices, online courses, and just learn something. Something will grab you. Maybe it's a new language, or I think a wonderful thing to learn if we're on this journey is learn about neuroplasticity. So, come and listen to Loretta this afternoon, and next week we've got another neuroscientist who's going to talk to us. And if you're like me and Lynette, you'll get hooked on this kind of stuff because it's pretty fascinating. And it's lovely, the idea of being able to control your kind of brain and your thinking rather than letting it control us. So that was number 6, just 2 more now. Remember that change takes time. Don't be impatient. I get lots of people writing to me saying, "Oh, I've been sober for a while, but I'm not happy," so maybe they need a project. But just keep going and mark off your tracker. When you get up in the morning, mark it off, set your intention, sober day, and just kind of notch up those what do we call it, sober stretches. And then always beware of fab, because fab might well come and get you. If you heard me talking to William Porter, then you might remember he explained fab to us. And what fab stands for is fading effect bias. And what happens after you've been sober for a few weeks, you'll start to feel good. You'll be looking better, feeling better, a bit more energy, beginning to sleep. And then you'll start having these wicked thoughts like, maybe I wasn't that bad. Maybe I can have the odd glass of wine now and again. Well, just don't. That's all I'm saying. It's your brain tricking you. Don't go there. Just carry on. If you're sober springer, do your 66 days and then decide what you're going to do. And the last one is number 8. Beware of paws. PAWS stands for post-acute withdrawal syndrome, and it's a thing. You can Google that. People coming off drugs, they go through it as well. It's all about depression and guilt, and it's nasty. It's quite difficult. But I think Lynette came up with this, and I love it, because she said that when we feel all that, we've got to acknowledge that our brain is healing itself. Because when we drink, we don't just hurt our bodies, we're hurting our brain. Our brain has got to recover, our brain has got to just recalibrate, and all the kind of hormones and everything have got to get back to how they were. And the good news is that more or less happens. Your brain will heal. Our bodies are amazing. In my case, I've used my body for decades, and more or less I'm kind of okay these days, so it will heal. But just stop pouring a neurotoxin into your body every day and you can get on with your healing. And educate yourself. That's something else that I would suggest when you come to pause. Just educate yourself about the brain. The more that you learn about alcohol as well, just if you've got a few minutes one day and you're not quite sure what to do, just Google, what does alcohol do to my body or my brain, and you'll be horrified. And the more we learn about this, the more we feel, or rather the less inclined we feel to put this stuff into our bodies, to touch it. So educate yourself, and educate yourself about your brain. Please listen to podcast number 55 with Loretta, who's coming to Zoom Cafe this afternoon. And then Stacey, who is a neuroscientist, she's coming to the Zoom Cafe next week, and she's on podcast number 57. So it'd be great if you can listen to those podcasts before you come and listen to the ladies, because then you can put questions to them, which you can anyway, but it'll be more interesting to you if you've listened to the podcast first, I think. So that's it. That's my 8 things. So yeah, just to finish off, I'll say be kind to yourself. It's amazing that you're doing this in the first place, because 98% of the population probably wouldn't even consider it, and that's why we get so much abuse when we try to be healthy. So be kind to yourself, and you might not get it right straight away if you're a first-time sober springer, but remember, the only failure is to stop trying. And that's why we love our trackers so much, because you notch up those days, and okay, you have a slip up one night, it's tough, but the next day you just get back on the bus, you tell the group, don't hide it, don't keep it to yourself, tell the group, and then, your tracker, it's back on track the next day. So you're doing sober stretches. And I know she doesn't mind me going on about her, but we've got our lovely tribe member Monica, and she's quite open about the fact that she's had 84 day ones. She fell off the wagon. I think she joined us for Sober Spring last year, Sober Spring 2020, and she's been trying really hard, but she fell off the wagon 84 times. But now she's got it, she's just got it, and she's flying in her early sobriety. She's, what is she, 4 or 5 months or something? If you're there, Monica, remind us. But she is such an example, the best example I've seen in 6 years, of someone who was kind of dogged, in her determination. She kept falling off, getting back, falling off, getting back. And, at the beginning, when she fell off, she'd go on a 2 week bender. But towards the end, when she fell off, she'd be straight back on the next day. So, she's my poster girl for day ones. So if Monica can do it, we can all do it. So yeah, so you've got your tracker, you Sober Springers. You members who aren't Sober Springers have got your annual trackers. So just see how many sober days you can get out of 66 or out of a year. If it's not 100% fine, but it's probably a lot more than the previous year or the previous, 60 stint of 66 days. So, just notch up those sober stretches and you'll get there. So I think that's all I need to say. If you miss the first bus, let's have the commercial. I always forget that. If you missed the Sober Spring bus number 1 that is already en route, then the next bus, the last bus of this year, leaves on the 27th of September. So go to tribesober.com, look for Sober Spring, click on that, and you can read more information, read about the support you get, and you can sign up. And what we're doing with people, because I've got people now saying, oh, I missed the bus, and have I got to wait, till the 27th? And I say, yes, wait till the 27th for your support, but I'm going to put you on the first bus now just to kind of listen and learn. So I'll be putting a few people on the first sober bus probably, just so that they don't feel too lonely, because Sober Spring Bus 2 has only got 4 people on it so far, but there will be more. Right, that's me. Now let me do my favourite bit, which is talk to you guys. So Eileen, Udemy, yes. Yeah, it's amazing, and it just gives you so many ideas. And there's also there's a website called meetup.com, and I mean, during the pandemic, obviously there weren't many meetups, but the point of that thing for me is there's this enormous list of all the different things that people do. Because to me, I never had any hobbies. My hobby was socializing, also known as drinking with my friends. And I didn't realize all these interesting things that people do. And that's one of the advantages of sobriety. Right. Ros, oh hi, Ros. Mary Louise, Mandy, Lindy, my other Mandy. Hi, Natasha. So Margie, and Shez. Hello, Shez. Shez is a Sober Spring graduate, a cheerleader lady. Oh, I like that. She cried like a baby when she stopped drinking. Yeah, all the emotions come out because we're not numbing them away anymore. Fruit works for me. Chomping on a carrot. I've got an image in my brain now, Lynette. Yeah, guzzled chocolate, yes. Yeah, eating fruit. Have a listen to Mary Ann Shearer, and Mandy Shrimpton knows a lot about healthy eating as well. Yeah, as she says, it's a living food and so good for your body. So we've lost to Mandy now. She's off to have brunch, so I do hope that's an alcohol-free brunch she's having. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Lynette's already had a one-to-one coaching session with Loretta, so that's going to be really interesting. Yeah, get on. Oh, Lucy, there you are. I hope you heard me quoting you, talking about your only chase one bunny at a time. We learned that from you. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go now. Thank you so much for showing up. If you missed any of this, it's on our YouTube channel with all the other ones. I'm sure Monica will put that on for us soon. And I hope to see all of you at the Zoom cafe. If there's anyone watching this live that isn't a member or isn't on Sober Spring, you can email me at janet@tribesober.com and I'll send you an invite to come as a guest at our Zoom cafe. So looking forward to seeing you all a bit later on. Bye, guys.